Most important, the most significant negotiation, the negotiation that determines more of our well-being and more of our suffering than any other negotiation, is the negotiation with our internalized family system, otherwise known as me. As an infant coming in, we unconditionally accept, unconditionally open to, and receive the entire pattern of the family system over multiple generations. So we have the system of our mother, and we have the system of our father. And this system has many different points that represent the patterns of the individuals in the system in dialogue with one another. So one person in the family committed suicide so as not to upset the authority. Another member of the system avoids doing what it takes to succeed so as not to outshine the father. Another person in the system lies about their happiness so as not to ruffle the boat, right? We're a miserable, suffering family. Nothing is ever right. That's internalized. They sneak around it by being secretly happy, but on the surface, they pretend to be miserable. Oh, it's terrible, but secretly they're enjoying themselves. All the lust in the family system that is biological and thus innate gets secretly directed here, shamed and misdirected over here. Right? This pattern of how energy is digested and expressed in this system is carried intergenerationally. Maybe 3 generations back, everyone in the system knew that there wasn't enough. You looked around, crops were failing, there was a depression. It's not enough. It's not enough. No matter what, they went out to try and get a job here, they went out to try and get a job there. It's not enough. It's not enough. And so the systems of the entire family were given to each of our parents' bodies in infancy. It's a download. And if you look at the protocol of life, the protocol of evolution, it's copy the winners, right? Because every one of us is part of the 1%. That made it, that's here today, that's alive, that exists. Every one of us are winners. Right? And the system that got us here, the biological system, the cultural system that got us here, is the winning system. It always is. Right? Victimhood, martyrhood, lies, rape, hard work, discipline, courage, confronting death, appeasement, negotiation, prostitution, payment. These are the systems that brought us here today. Fight, flight, freeze, rational analysis. Right? These are the systems that win. These are the systems that got us here today. And the entire intricate network of those protocols and algorithms on mom's side and on dad's side, in their entire family, are downloaded into the infant before the infant can reason, before the infant can analyze, into the body. These systems are downloaded because they're the winning system. Now, evolution occurs in a protocol of sympathy, antipathy, synthesis. Unconditional yes, download. Critical analysis and rejection, antipathy. And then, as adulthood is perhaps achieved, grown-uphood, an older body, sure, guaranteed. But do you move from the child in your family system, from the infant of unconditional acceptance, and they said so, so it must be true, do you move from that into the antipathy of the adolescent? Into the what the fuck? You say, tell the truth and you lied to mom? What the fuck? You say, tell the truth and this will be our little secret? Well, what's that? Shh, 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 right? Shh. The system says we can't talk about that. Where did it come from? Where did that come from? We do this, this, and this, and we can't talk about it, right? Well, there's many ways where that can come from, right? When being a Jew and talking about it gets you killed, well, then there are obvious things that you don't talk about. That kept you alive one time. Now it's just there in the system. It's an instinct. This is absolutely crazy, but we're not going to talk about it. This is schizophrenic nuts. And we're all going to look right at it and pretend it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. Are we going to sing about it? Are we going to cower about it? That's in the body. That's in the system. And it's a good system, meaning 99.9% of the families are dead. Their branches, one always told the truth, one always rescued the victim, one always ran from harm. Those systems, simpler systems, we always do this, right? Whenever there's an attacker, we go to Helm's Deep, right? That's just our one, that's our system, right? But when anything happens, we do this, right? Those systems are dead. And they're dead because they were too simple in a complex environment. So we're schizophrenic. We say, follow your passion, and then we drive to a job we don't like. Schizophrenic, isn't it? But that one apparently worked. It's nuts. It's hard to make head or tail of something like that, particularly when the rule is shh. But that system's still around, right? The system of, don't leave me. I promise it'll never happen again. Well, it's already happened 200 times. You've already made that promise 200 times. But apparently, people still believe that shit. And so here it is, today, right? I'll never leave you. Have sex with me. I'll marry you. That's still around today. That shit works. You know what doesn't work? You know, if we have sex, I probably will leave you. Statistically, I'm going to cheat on you at some point in the next 5 years. Then I'll feel guilty and punish you. And so, how would you like to have sex, right? Well, that's the truth. That doesn't work, right? The systems that are here today, please, I'll never leave you. Oh, isn't that sweet? I'd like to have sex with this liar, right? Those systems are here because they win. Those are the winning systems. And so, before there is critical analysis, that's what gets downloaded. Because that's the best that your family were able to come up with in the environment in which they found themselves, in which they created. That's the best your family has to offer. And it is good enough to have kept those genes alive in an ecological evolving dance in which 99.9% of all systems are radically evolved or dead. That system is still working. And so as a default, it's not bad. It's fucked up. It's schizophrenic. It's crazy. It's frustrating as hell. It's incredibly inefficient. But it is here. And into the body it goes, unquestioned, unedited. Here you are, little one. Here's what our family came up with. And the baby is combining two systems. You know, and sometimes when you mix Windows and OX software, it just collapses, right? Sometimes you put Microsoft Windows and Apple software in one body, and I don't know what to do with this. I mean, I get that it kept you alive, but how do I deal with this? You say yes and you say no, right? You say do that and then you hit me? What do I do with that, right? So the systems get downloaded into the child from the mother, from the father. They get downloaded biologically. They get downloaded culturally. They get downloaded through mirror neurons as a child tries to understand the pattern that's resonating in both parents. They are downloaded. And sometimes you get a beautiful synergy where you have the frailty and the helpless victim dynamic of mom's side, and you get the assertive, confident side on dad's side. And then the assertive, confident side advocates for the frail, helpless side. And you have an internalized marriage that is better than, like if you have a hero, for example, they've got to go off and do something heroic, right? Well, what better than to find a damsel in distress, right? And, do something useful and have sex, right? Be rescued and, oh, my eternal hero. I mean, that's not a terrible internal dialogue, right? Part of you says, oh, it would be so nice if someone came along and took care of me. And then your internalized masculine says, that'll be me. I'll take care of you. And you actually take care of yourself. That's not a bad dialogue. And then your part says, oh, thank you so much for taking care of me. I couldn't have done it on my own. Oh, don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for. Only the best for us, eh? Right? That's not a bad internal dialogue if you internalize that. Right? And maybe if that's a little boring, then you externalize it again, because what happens is the system is internalized, right? So let's see if we have any room up here. It's always irritating that I'm in the way of the drawing, but let's just make a little space up here for the infant. So the dad system gets internalized, mom's system gets internalized as a chaotic, crude copy, right? So, it's kind of like soup. Mom likes an orange juice for breakfast, dad likes bacon and eggs, right? And so that goes in a blender, and now you've got orange juice with eggs blended, right? It tastes disgusting, right? And it's like trying to wake up and figure out who you are when dad wants this and mom wants that. And in other words, when it's a crappy marriage, the child has a jumbled up thing. Like, we never bothered to sort this out. We never reconciled anything, Mom says this, I say this, we fight, and then we have sex. And then we do it all over again. We never reconcile anything. And so here you are, kid, do something with that. It's a tough system, right? And so sometimes it leads to suicide, leads to collapse, because there's just no way to win. There's no way to win in that system. Maybe there was a way to win on dad's side, maybe there was a way to win on mom's side, but there's no way to really win together. It's a fucked up marriage. It's a bad marriage. Get those scrambled eggs out of my orange juice, right? I don't want fresh squeezed orange juice on my potatoes. Get it out of there, right? It was a good recipe here, blended, it's terrible. Just terrible, right? And so you have a kid in that terrible dynamic, and they've got both. And their biology is programmed to say, that's the best. These are winning systems, right? You can't reject them. Now, the adolescent develops out of the pain and suffering of the child, right? If the child has a perfect life, in some cases, they don't grow up. In many cases, they don't grow up. Right? Because the adolescent is antithesis against what? Against what's messed up. You think orange juice is good on potatoes? Right? You think baked beans and gas is the best food that exists? I'm telling you, there's French restaurants, there's this, there's that. I mean, what is this? Where is this coming from? And of course, the family system continues forward as iterations through generations, right? It continues as iterations. But if mom didn't have a chance to grow up, what does growing up mean? Growing up means you downloaded the system, everyone does. You're a child, that's guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that you become an adolescent. If you are too traumatized, too regressed, too terrified, you do not feel safe enough to rebel. You do not feel safe enough to question. You do not feel safe enough to reject the little bit of stability and certainty that the old system provides. And so you just stay a child. Why did you do that? Well, that's what my mother did. That's a child. Why did you do that? Well, that's the way things are done in this cult, right? Children do what is done because it's done without question. They don't question authority. They don't question their government. The government tells them to burn Jews. I don't want to get in trouble. That's a child. That's a child. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll just do what they told me to do. And there are at least 30% children in our cultures. The sociological studies prove it, right? They will go along with whatever the group asks. They will go along with whatever the authority asks, regardless of whatever healthy voice inside of them might say, this does not seem like a good idea. This does not seem like a good idea. You've heard of the prison experiments, where they just take a group of random people and say, your job is to be prison guards, and your job is to be prisoners. And they put them together for a couple of weeks. And the authorities tell the prison guards they've got to be tough and ruthless, or even if they say nothing, they fall into the system of abuse. Pretty soon, ordinary people are torturing their prisoners. Why did they shut down the mental institutions in the United States? Because the doctors were having sex with the patients. And there was nothing anyone knew how to stop that. Basically, if you put grown, competent Americans, regardless of medical training, into a building with semi-sedated people who needed help, who had no voice, the authorities would fuck the patients again and again and again. And they couldn't solve, our culture couldn't solve that problem. And it was so embarrassing that they said, okay, we're going to put all the disturbed, traumatized people on the street just so that we don't have to be responsible for paying doctors to fuck patients. And so, right? Goodbye sexual abuse in mental institutions. Hello, homelessness. Hello, craziness on the street. Now, is that progress or is it regression? You see, now we have to look at the fact that we're crazy. We drive on any street corner and there it is. Is that progress? We used to be able to lock them up into buildings and say, oh, these wonderful people are taking care of them. Now we say, we don't know what we're doing. And we produce crazy people, and we don't know what to do about it. And we don't like it, but we don't know how to respond. So what? We just pretend, we just drive by, right? Hello, we just drive by. We just ignore the screaming crazy parts inside, outside. It's the same thing, right? Those people weren't born crazy. They went crazy when two dissociative, dysfunctional family systems came together for a variety of crazy reasons and dumped two softwares in there, two biological systems, one that said hide and the other one that said beat them up, right? And I can't do both. What do I do? What do I do? Everyone said, just get on with it. I'm busy. So they huddled up. They went crazy. And there they are, right? Waiting for competency, waiting for adulthood. Anyone will do, right? Waiting for an adult that knows what to do with this. Do you know what to do with it? I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's not my problem, right? Says the child. So if you are lucky, you become an adolescent. And the adolescent is pissed because the child experiences the torment, the dysfunction, the trauma what's wrong with the system. The child experiences that 10 times more than the grown-ups because they're so small. Oh, Dad's arrived in a drunken rage. Oh, God. Oh, we're going to have to listen to him all night. Oh, well, why isn't the fireplace under this? Why are you all sleeping? Oh, God, we're going to have to put up with this till morning, says the teenager. They can deal with it. Maybe the uncle says, oh, that's Dad doing his war thing, right? They send people over to war, give them PTSD, and then send them home and tell them to be human again, right? And doesn't work, but nobody wants to talk about that, right? So Dad's doing his war thing. But for the infant, if a drunken person knocks the crib over, their entire world is unsafe. And it's always about them. The infant makes everything about them. I'm unlovable for the rest of their life. I'm just unlovable. And that message of unlovability is given to the child by the entire system who didn't protect the child, right? The system created the drunkenness, right? Governments know and have known for hundreds of years that it creates long-term abusive PTSD to send people to war, and that it needs care that they are not giving to veterans. They know that. And they know that there's a 10x increase in spousal and family violence when you send a veteran with PTSD back into a family. They know it, and they don't want to spend the money to do something about it. And they've banished and made the psychedelics illegal that are currently the best treatments available. And they don't want to talk about that, right? So all these little games that the system has produced creates massive trauma that is internalized into our children. And the child, of course, cannot do anything about it. The child is the real victim. Someone who is regressed to a childlike state is a victim. Someone who does not receive the help to transcend, to transform their trauma is a victim. Because unprocessed, undigested trauma leads to dissociation at the psychological age at which the trauma occurs. So if you're 7 years old and you are raped, and you go, nobody told you about rape. Why? Why don't we tell kids about rape? It happens all the time. Well, because we believe in secrecy, right? Appearances, right? So we don't tell. The kid doesn't know what to make of it. Mom, 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 someone stuck his penis in here. Shh, shh, shh. Quick, get in here, quick. Now, don't say a word ever again about this. I don't want to hear it. Don't say a word. Here, we're going to clean you up. Now smile, come to dinner. Don't. Not a word. Well, how do you digest that? How do you deal with that in a cult where if you go to school and say, my mom says don't say a word about this. Don't. Yeah, just do what your mother says. Tell your classmate. And now you're gossiped about and humiliated in school. In other words, if the system is so fucked up that it classifies a certain regular behavior, rape, as terrible and unspeakable, and then hides it and tells everyone they will be punished for talking about it, how do you digest that? Am I a bad person? Why aren't we talking about this? Children make it all about themselves. And if that was so terrifying and nobody would talk about it, you're left as an inner 7-year-old to deal with that. You are a victim because a 7-year-old cannot digest what an incompetent culture cannot even talk about, right? So you're stuck with that. You feel 7 years old, you feel confused, you feel overwhelmed, you feel shamed, you feel ugly, you feel unspeakable, because that's what the system gave you. The rapist didn't do that, by the way. The system did. right? Because if the system had another response, right? Let's say, because most of the damage happens in the response, by the way, to these unspeakable, ridiculous anomalies in cult code. They happen in response to that. So the system has these things that it doesn't want to talk about, and that's the problem, more than the rape. Right? Rapes can sometimes feel pleasurable biologically. They're just very confusing because we don't talk about sex, right? So someone may enjoy having, a 5-year-old might enjoy having sex with a 10-year-old, let's say. Oh, there's very, very strange feelings. And maybe the 10-year-old was trying to copy what was going on with, he saw his mom and dad do that, and here, let's do this, right? But the fact that it is not even speakable, right? And that you're bad for, and the distress on the entire system's face, that we don't talk about this because it would ruin the lives of the 5-year-old and the 10-year-old in a culture that doesn't know how to deal with it. That's a big, big problem. And it's hard to become mature around something that a cult blockades from consciousness, blockades from language. You can't talk about it, so you can't integrate it. So you stay a 7-year-old, so you stay a victim at the effect of the cult, right? So that's the way that goes. That's the way that goes. And so you remain a victim until you can talk about it, until you can rebel, until you can confront. So that child might, for example, by the time they're 15 or whatever, say, hey, why'd you put me in a room and wash me and tell me never to talk when I was raped? I just read on the radio, I just heard that you're supposed to tell kids that this is not their fault. You never told me it wasn't my fault. Shh. Well, that's what my mother did, when I was raped. Well, because in that day, there wasn't any, now we've got some awareness of it, but I just panicked, I'm sorry. And now the kid can become an adolescent. You fucked up. And they always do, right? Every parent, every cult, filled with stupidity, filled with inefficiency, right? Laughably incoherent. You say work hard and you sit in front of a TV all day telling me to do my homework? I mean, how dumb can you get? And then it's not okay to talk about that? It's like, this is nuts. And it is. It's absolutely nuts. But that's the way all cults, that's the way all systems are. There's all these little funny bits that once upon a time, back in the 15th century, our family did this because of this. But we never really bothered to upgrade the code, right? We've just got that little bit there, right? Back when Microsoft was developing Windows 2.1, right? They put this in because of this, and they never really cleaned it up, right? So it's now this gigantic jumble of nonsense. There's 5 times bigger than it needs to be, and this one says this, and do this, and we fix it with this way, and oh, what a nightmare, right? But if we just deleted it all and built a new operating system from scratch, it would be so efficient. But how would it relate to people who still have an XP80 or this or that? So we'll just keep building and writing more code to respond to the crazy code before, right? And that's how systems, that's how cultures work. So if we become an adolescent, it means we put into words the absurdity, what's wrong about the system. Mom, you're a hypocrite. What do you mean? I'm your mother, right? I'll hit you. Well, now maybe you regress the person back to the 4-year-old and, okay, they can't become an adolescent. Or They try and hit you, and you say, hey, I've actually got a bigger body at this point, so cut it out. Cut it out. Mom, you're a hypocrite. If you can't deal with it, stay out of my life. That's an adolescent, right? And, and the adolescent thinks that this is the end, right? The adolescent thinks that I stood up to mom. Wonderful, wonderful. Right, but that's the outer one. That's the outer one. And usually what happens if systems have tremendous defenses around them. Right? So first mom collapsed. How could you say that to me? Oh, okay, mom, we won't talk about it, right? So mom collapses, right? That doesn't work. Mom, you're actually 50 years old, right? These are words. You're an idiot, and these are words, and you can't deal with them, but you want me to listen to you? What do you want me to become? An idiot? Well, then the next defense comes in, right? How dare you, you miserable, you didn't, you miserable thing, get out of this house. So we still can't talk about it because now you're a bully. First you collapse, now you're a bully. Which is it, Mom? Which is it going to be? Oh, silence. No, I'm never talking to you. You are not my child, right? And of course, when you reject the system that mom's still holding on to because she never grew up, or because that's what her mother did to shut her up, right? And it worked, right? And so the systems protect themselves because it's efficient to copy things. When you're in a factory that's creating some dumb design, bing, 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 it's just 10,000 dumb ideas every single day. It's like, why couldn't they make that switch a little bit bigger so you could get it with your finger? And they could. They absolutely could. But you know what it would take? First of all, you have to stop the factory. You can't continually make 10,000 a day and make a change. You have to pause the factory. Well, that's going to cost money. We're going to pay all these people, all these robots, all these people but we're stopping the system. Number two, if they calculate that the refunds, like people are just putting up with that crappy switch, they're still buying the product. It's not in their interest to stop the factory. So they will keep making thousands upon thousands, millions upon millions of crappily designed devices because it is cheaper to keep things moving. It's easier. Nobody has to think. Nobody has to try anything. It's simpler and easier to just produce garbage. And that's what we do. It's the same for our parents. Our parents could do a lot of personal growth workshops and this and that and change the family system. Or they can just give their child the garbage they were given with very little thought, and it takes no effort at all. It takes an enormous amount of waste, and because the system is insane. But it doesn't require any thought. You don't have to think, right? You don't have to grow up in a culture that doesn't teach us how. You just copy and repeat, copy and repeat. And I do what my mom did because my mom did it. And that's why I do it. Right? It's very simple, very, very, very easy there's no thought in that. And we do this because that's what we eat, right? Hamburgers, and we're getting fat. But this is an American diet. Hamburgers and French fries and milkshakes, right? Sugar and dairy, carbohydrates, and more sugar and dairy and carbohydrates. But we're getting fat. That's the American way. Nobody's going to tell me what to do, right? And so let's just get fat, right? And of course, 99.9% of all cultures are dead, right? Which means that in 1 billion years, there's a 99.9% that our culture will die. Right? And maybe it will iterate. Maybe the last generation on its last legs will say, screw the diet, screw this, back to square one. We are going to reinvent ourselves. We're going to eat the best food that we can find. We're going to do We're going to do the best education system we can do. We're going to stop imprisoning people and start rehabilitating people based on science. We're going to, have less money spent in offense and more on, let's make it easier for someone to partner with us than to go to war with us, right? And then they don't have to, right? Let's do that, right? Put all our effort into negotiation skills. And that culture will win or it will fail, right? 99.9% of all cultures fail over time. They radically change or they die out. And the same with family systems, right? So we're in the winning streak at the moment, but a billion years from now, 99.9% of what's happening today will all be thrown out long ago, or it'll be dead. The people who kept doing the old thing, the old way that didn't work, will be dead, and their children will be dead because there was no energy to give the children with all those failed protocols. So that's just what's happening. And if we have the stamina, if we have the ability to go into antipathy, where we speak what's wrong, we say what's wrong, we name what's wrong, and we blame our parents. Adolescents are still not responsible, but they say it, they speak it, they make a list of everything that's fucked up with their parents. Now, in a highly defensive cult-like system, the parents will not say, thank you for telling me, that's a good point, you're absolutely right, and I just did a slightly better version of what my parents did. And it was crappy what my parents, or they may be in the childlike state of, no, my parents were wonderful people and I'm a wonderful people because I'm just like my parents, right? So that's the child, right? Don't say anything bad about my mom and dad. They're killing you. How dare you? That's my dad, that's my mom, right? I am a Republican. Don't say anything about my party. That's my father's party. So the child may defend the family system, right? The adolescent can speak it, but what often happens in a shame-based culture is the parent can't deal with the perception that in the system they're supposed to be punished for everything they do wrong. That's a shame-based system. It's a punishment system, a shame-based system. So basically the child tells the parent what they did wrong, and in the system the parent is supposed to feel guilty, bad, and be punished. And the parent does not want to feel guilty, bad, and be punished. And so they reject the voice of the child, and there's a schism. The child separates. In America, the child separates from the parent. And they tell their friends how fucked up their parents are. And they want nothing to do with their parents. And their parents tell their friends how ungrateful their kids are, or they hide in shame. And that's the system. But there's still no responsibility. The adolescent has now figured out that it's not all my fault, it's my parents' fault. It's your fault. You locked me up in a cellar and wouldn't feed me unless I believed those fucking lies. What was I supposed to do? It's your fault. You fucking moron. You dumb shit. You fucked up. I want nothing to do with you. I never want to see you again, right? So off the adolescent goes. There's just one problem. We need a system. Everyone needs an operating system, a piece of software. Everyone needs a system. We don't have a system. We need a system. Everyone needs a system. So we've now rejected, X, the money system is fucked up. The rich people keep getting richer. I'm not rich. It's fucked up. Okay. You throw away money. What do you do next, right? Well, I'll live in a treehouse, says the adolescent, right? So adolescent is good at rejecting things. And this is necessary evolution. Because remember, evolution, sympathy, antipathy, synthesis. So the adolescent talks about how fucked up everyone grows their hair long, doesn't get a job, blames the system, goes around telling everyone, tries to upset the children. Right? The children still want to believe their parents know what they're doing. The adolescent says, no, your parent is an idiot. That's wrong, you know. Oh, right, but the adolescent doesn't know how to care for children. No, you're on your own. No, your parents are fucked up, but don't come to me, right? I told you. And, you know, the adolescent goes, smokes a joint, whatever, and seethes about the injustices. So that's the adolescent stage. That's antipathy. Now, again, if no one will honor the antipathy of the adolescent, everyone says, we're not going to give you a job, we're not going to talk to you, we're not going to listen to you. Often it crystallizes the adolescent in a state of dissociation. Nobody will hear my fucking list. They're going to pay, right? Well, then the adolescent has to do a march on Washington, do a this, do a that. You know, someone is going to hear, we protest, right? And these are the adolescents that nobody wants to hear. Nobody acknowledges, yes, I'm an idiot. Yes, I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's unfair. Yes, that's schizophrenic. Yes, we're a bunch of Christian morons that kill people. Yes, the Christians have been going to war and systematically breaking the Ten Commandments, and apparently they're fine with it. Yes, this is a dumb book, and the books that tell you to think are not popular with the teachers. Yes, your teacher is not teaching you the right subjects. See, the adolescent may need some validation from something because they're not an adult yet. They're just smart enough to figure out what's wrong with the system. Now, the adolescent needs initiation. It needs some blessing, some sense that their new view is welcome somewhere. They need honor. And that's where the old men come in. That's where the elders come in a healthy cult. But what if you don't have a healthy cult? What if you just have people apologizing for themselves and nobody initiates you? Well, that's a tough system to grow up in, right? So you don't grow up. You just say, oh, well, I'm gonna capitulate, you know. I'll keep smoking. I'm not happy about this. I'll go out and drink, fuck around, drive fast, but I don't know what to do about this. So I'm going to just eventually knock someone up and decide not to get an abortion, and I guess I have to join the system, right? But I don't like it. I don't like it. I guess I got to do it. Right? I got to play my role. So that's kind of a stunted adolescent, right? Nobody honored the adolescent. You just become part of the system with very little change, or you become an outcast, right? Nobody talks to you. You can't get work. Nobody listens to your ideas. You just wander off in an outcast role because you don't fit into the system. And you know the system is wrong, but nobody initiates you. You don't initiate yourself. You don't know what to do about it. So evolution is not helped by children or by adolescents. If you're lucky, you become an adult. Synthesis. And what synthesis is about is, first of all, you acknowledge that nothing is perfect. That's a big acknowledgement. Adolescent wants, I'm not moving, I'm not doing that until the world gets its act together. I'm not talking to you until you tell mom the truth about this. Well, you know, your father's an idiot, right? And so you're not talking to mom or him forever, right? Because you're not going to do this. Until my government apologizes to the Vietnamese citizens for burning them alive, for putting all that CO2 in the ozone, I am not going to pay my taxes. Oh, you're going to garnish my wages and pay my taxes? Oh, I'm not working for you. And I'm not working for you either. You fucking goddamn morons. Sellouts, all of them. Well, you know, that's a wonderful stage. That means that you were strong enough to call out and name your childhood, your cult, your family. It's wonderful. But, right? A bunch of people on the highway median, smoking and drinking, free love, refusing to work, bumming cash on the sidewalk. That's not changing the system, right? What evolution requires is what's called synthesis. It begins by acknowledging that no parent, including you, is remotely perfect. You are just where you are on the evolutionary continuum that is infinite, number one. Number two, nothing gets thousands of percent better. Nothing goes from, a shame-based dysfunctional family that can't talk to, you don't take a 2-year-old and suddenly make them the perfect president of the country. No, there's a process. And the process requires work and discipline and time and effort, is uncomfortable, is inefficient, is frustrating because you don't know what you're doing. See, this is the most uncomfortable thing for the adolescent. The adolescent cannot change the system any more than the grown-ups can change the system. Right? As evidenced by the fact that the adolescent hates the system, but hate doesn't change the system. Hate is incompetent as a remedy. The adolescent is filled with hate. So if the adolescent is intellectually honest, the adolescent has to say, I've been cursing my parents for the last 10 years. They haven't changed. I've been cursing my government for the last 10 years. They haven't changed. I'm not doing much with my life. I'm not contributing much. I don't know what I'm doing either, right? And that's a good start for an adolescent. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either. If I did, I would snap my finger and everything would be wonderful. I have snapped my fingers. I've said all that needs to happen. It's not changing, right? And then the adolescent can say, but if they would just listen to me. And perhaps, if everyone would listen to some smart adolescent, perhaps things would get much better. But they're not doing that, are they? So how do you figure out how to make everyone listen to you? That's on you, adolescent, right? If they don't want to listen to you and you want them to listen to you, but if they did, but they're not doing it. So if you made them listen to you, how would you do that? Well, that requires growth. And this is terrifying for an adolescent because they've figured out that no one around them knows what they're doing. So how are they going to grow up? How are they going to learn how to be a great speaker, right? Their parents weren't a great speaker, this, that, so what do they do, right? Well, this involves the humility of saying, okay, these are very long, 100 million year systems that have evolved biologically and culturally over time. Let's look at the role models. Martin Luther King, Gandhi. Who's your role model? Helen Keller. Who's doing stuff? Elon Musk has transformed the auto business. How did he do it? A lot of 100-hour weeks. Read every book in the library, ate glass and stared into the abyss, faced bankruptcy, put everything he possibly could into it, believed in things that other people didn't believe in, went against the odds knowingly. In 20 years, finally, some people are listening to him. Well, that's a role model. Are you willing to work 100-hour weeks, read every book in the library, think about what's best for the planet? I don't want to do that. It's tiring. I want to watch Mad Max, I don't want to do that. Well, okay. Well, then you're part of the system because we have a system of people that prefer watching television to transforming the planet. And so that's why they're not listening to you, right? And so, so this is the process of becoming an adult. Acknowledging that if something's going to change, I'm going to change it. with help, of course, and how am I going to ask for that help? And so this is the process of rejecting the worst of what was, incorporating the best of what is and what was. Mom may have been a schizophrenic sociopath when she was drunk, but she made good pancakes, and that's a start. That's a start, right? So I'm not going to throw everything from Mom out. I'm going to make good pancakes, and I'm going to do the psychological work to not be a schizophrenic drunk. How do I do that? Well, let's go on Audible and look, how do I avoid being a drunk, right? Since systems tend to iterate and copy. If both my parents are like this, unless I do something, it's very likely I'm going to be like that. Because this is the important thing to understand. That's the default software. If you don't reject it, edit it, change it, that's what you get, right? Right? When a Macintosh and a Windows give birth to a new computer, they connect the USB ports. Of course, they don't work very well because they're incompatible, but they connect the USB ports and they send all their code and they send all their code, and that's the code you get. You don't get an empty hard drive. You get generations of code. Great-grandfather said that you should be humble because you were black, and if you thought anything of yourself, you'd be beaten and imprisoned and killed for thinking too highly of yourself. So, no, I'm just a humble person. I may be the best in my class. I may be a genius in mathematics, but no, I don't deserve any honorarium. No, nobody would want to listen to my speech. Why? Because that kept your family alive, right? That one was killed, that one was killed, that one was killed by the Klan. You're alive because your dad said, "Yes, sir," and bowed his head. And you're angry that you're doing that. But that kept you alive. That kept you alive. And this is why I say that the most important negotiation you will have in your life is with yourself. Not the transcendent self, but the code that is in your body. The most important dialogue you have every moment and will ever have is with your code. When you start excelling, you feel like you're going to die. And you've got to look around. You've got to try and find in a very crazy culture that pretends that the past isn't there. That pretends that what happened, right? We in the American cult pretend that it's all about the individual. It isn't, but that's a great story, right? It's all about the individual. It's all about change. And you can do anything. You can do anything that you set your mind to. Well, that's true. If you have the art of setting your mind. But what if your mind is in your body and you're in a cult that doesn't teach you about the biological mind, let alone how to reset it? Well, then it's not very useful to say you can do anything you set your mind to when you don't teach me how to set my mind. And you don't teach me that my mind is in my body. And you don't teach me that the source of my mind is 5 generations back during a tremendous family trauma that lives on in the biology. Well, if you teach me all of that and say that if I can overcome all of that, if I can transform my biology and set my new biology to where I feel great when I do this, then I can achieve anything. Or if I'm willing to endure tremendous pain, schizophrenia, exhaustion, Or my body is saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but I do it anyway. And my body tells me again, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and I do it anyway. And I exhaust myself with that internal battle, winning the battle over and over again, exhausting myself, right? Do I have enough stamina? If 40% of me is fighting my success, do I have enough stamina to ignore the voices that tell me I'm going to die? I'm going to die if I make mom cry. And this makes mom cry for this and this and this reason. I'm going to die if I make mom cry. Once it was true. Once it was true. But now, how do I reset my biology so that my body opens when I do what I believe in, rather than wondering what mom would think, and thus limiting my entire possibility field to what the internalized body of mom thinks about this, right? Mom would just die rather than acknowledge she had a gay son. My biology seems to be saying that I'm gay. But my biology is also telling me that mom would rather be dead. And my biology is adding to that if mom dies, I die. Because that was once true when I was 2 years old. Right? Dad abandoned me, and mom left when I was 2 years old, and nobody found me in the house until I was dead. We can't upset mom. So you can achieve what you set your mind to, but your mind goes back generations. Your mind is in the body. And how can you set a mind that is not even acknowledged, that is not real within the language of your cult, of your family system? Oh, that's just, don't pay any attention to that. Just do it. Just do it. I can't. Just do it. I can't. My mind isn't set to that. It's set to silence. It's set to secrets. It's set to denial. I can't just do it. But that's the best your system has to offer. And maybe 1 in 10 in your family can just do it. Maybe 1 in 10 of your family is so sociopathic that they don't feel anything. And so the fear doesn't hold them back. And they're very, 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 very successful from the sociopathic performance brain. They're just very smart sociopaths. They know what people want and they perform and give it to them, but they feel nothing. So a sociopath could have just done it, but I have some connection with my empathic brain who is loyal to mom, and it won't do it. It won't do it. So what you're negotiating with, if you have the good fortune to be an adult, not just a grown-up, but you have recognized that nothing is perfect. You have taken the best of what was and what is and have incorporated that into your life. You've rejected what you can of the worst. My father used to beat me. I can bite my lip, I can fight it, I can be enraged, but I will not beat my child. So you reject the worst of what is. You feel the rage, you can't set that because you don't know how. You're in a psychologically illiterate culture, so it doesn't teach you how to interrupt a rage cycle. But it does teach you, I can go for a run, I can do this, I can leave the house, but I'm not going to cross this line physically. But I don't know what to do with the rage. Nobody taught me. If I bring it up at work, they say, come on, get to work, right? And that's what they do in this cult. So I rejected the worst of what was. I'm not beating my child, right? And then I'm not, I'm spending, my dad would see me every Christmas. I will see my children 10 minutes a day of quality time. So I'm making progress, right? But what about your adolescent? Does your adolescent say that you're full of shit? You're not perfect, right? Just like you said to your parents, and so it's not good enough, and nothing? Or do you have a good relationship with your inner adolescent? What about your child that says, we should just do what we've always done? Yes, I understand you need to do that, but we're going to try it a little bit differently. Or do you just collapse and become a child again? It's like, okay, I don't want to upset my child. I have a great job opportunity that would help me grow and do this, but my child doesn't want to move, right? Why don't we just stay here? Right? I like this kid, right? How do we deal with an imperfect world, right? So the sky is not the limit. We don't know how to reset the cult mind, the family mind, our mind. And even if we do, it's an iterative process. I think a reasonable expectation is somewhere between 25% and 100% better. If you think of what evolution is doing over billions of years, through the human consciousness, the human experiment, the copy is given to the child becomes an adolescent and rejects and scrutinizes everything wrong with the code, of which there is plenty. And then the child becomes an adult, which incorporates the best of what was and rejects the best, or it incorporates the best, rejects the worst, and then attempts to do something much better, fails, and does something somewhat better. And then the process repeats. And so every generation, if in one generation, you could think of the computer, like if you were a computer manufacturer and every 30 years you made a 25% better computer, well, you'd probably go out of business at the pace of innovation in technology. But if you've got an infinite amount of time, if your life, and humans get 25% better every 30 years, every 30, 40 years, it's not a terrible rate on return. But what if they could get 100% better, twice as good? My parents lied all the time. I only lie on weekends, right? So that's more than double. That's twice as good, right? My parents did this, I do this, right? A little better, right? So if you can get 100% better with each generation, there's plenty that get worse. They take the worst thing, they can't get over it, and they regress and they become worse. But 100% better, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad approach. And if you can accept that, if your adolescent can bless you and say, thank you for getting 100% better. No, it's not half as good as my ideal utopia, but it is twice as good, I'll give you that, right? Well, that's progress. And so where can you eke that out? Where can you negotiate that? I refuse to change my diet for whatever reason. I'm still loyal to the family system. Okay? Do you also refuse? How about meditating while you eat crappy junk food and get fat? Okay, I can do that. All right, so you change the meditation. I get fat eating crappy junk food, and I meditate and have transcendent experiences. Because it's important to understand that there are some things that you don't understand about your family system because you're in a psychologically illiterate culture. Your mom never told you that Uncle Harry committed suicide for this and this and this, and the entire generation never talked about it and won't talk about it, and now you feel like committing suicide. Well, that's not, you have no idea where that's coming from. You may not be able to, where is that? That was given to you as an undigested part of the family system to commit suicide so that it could be talked about. It wasn't talked about, and the family system, for it to evolve, needs someone to commit suicide that everyone talks about. That's improvement of the system. You're in your loyal role as a child, at least, right? Your adolescent is, fuck that, I don't want to commit suicide. But that's in the biology. It's in the biology. You have to negotiate that. What if I did this and this? Would I still have to commit suicide? And that's a checking in. That's also listening to your behavior, your reality. What do I mean? Well, if you say, I'm going to be rich, I'm not going to be poor like my parents, but you watch yourself go to the casino, do people who gamble get rich or do they get poor? Seems like I'm committed to being poor. Oh no, but I could win. Doesn't seem that way. Seems like you're trying to be poor. I look at quick rich, get rich quick schemes rather than long-term index funds. Well, what statistic, right? 99% of all gamblers lose money. How many people who pursue get rich quick schemes make money? 1%, 2%? Okay, so I'm still trying to lose money. So you may say, look, for whatever reason, I'm committed to being poor. I waste money on gambling. I rush out and buy the stock picks. I don't listen to index funds. I certainly don't invest in Warren Buffett or buying a house. I want to be poor. Okay. So could I be healthy and be poor? Could I be really healthy? Oh, that's fine within the system. Go ahead. Be healthy. Be a gym nut, right? Be handsome, healthy, have all the sex you want as long as you're poor. Well, in other words, don't just because every time you try to be rich, you get more in debt. Don't give up on the entirety of life. You may say, for whatever reason, I'm deeply committed in my system to being poor. That's a reality. So what can I do to mitigate my commitment to poverty? Maybe I give my money to my wife. If I give my money to my wife, what happens? Does she make good investments? Okay, you can be rich in your system. So here, you have all the money I can earn. That's suffering. I'm good at that in my system. So I'm going to make money and suffer. And then I'm going to give all my money to you, and then you're going to make the family rich. Don't tell me about it. Don't listen to my bullshit. You invest the money. The family becomes rich because you have to honor the prison, the structure that you are in with and your current limitations. Thank goodness, right? No matter what I do, I lose money, but I found someone who makes money. Wonderful, right? I haven't found someone who makes money yet, but I can at least have a good sex life and be healthy. I just have to be poor. So that's my current limitation. So I can improve my health, I can do this, so I can evolve. I can grow in this area, this area, this area, this area. Here I have a limit. I can get this amount of money and no more. If I get more, I just waste it. I get an accident. I do something to come back into line, right? Because that's what the system dictates. And it is a science, right? You don't just have one person out of nowhere in a culturally illiterate culture or in a psychologically illiterate culture just change their family system any more than you have one person invent the nuclear bomb. It takes millions of people participating all around the globe, making money, paying taxes, doing all this to have a nuclear bomb. Right? It also takes millions of people participating in various ways to become psychologically literate. Right? It takes learning. It takes, a good 5 years minimum, right? And practice and effort and building muscle and learning what your life will tell you where you're stuck in your system. I have so much opportunity, I just won't take it. Okay, that's where you're stuck. But that's what you were given. And you're going to have to figure out why that was the case and how to work with it. Now, family constellation therapy is one way. It's one doorway. Inner dialogue and voice dialogue work is another way. Chair work is another way. EMDR is another way. A little bit of psychotherapy may help. Effective use, a very rare experience, but effective use of certain psychedelics, such as mushrooms, right? Take the 100 hours it takes to become literate about what can go wrong with that, and also what often goes right with it, right? So that could help. So you can start playing within the density of invisible code in your body that's guiding you to repeat a copy of the family system. And start playing and understanding, why are you repeating this? Who learned that? You can go back to Uncle Henry and say, thank you for keeping the family alive back in the 15th century. You refused all scientific knowledge. You blindly followed the priest, and you got promoted. Great. But I am a scientist, and I don't want to feel like I'm going to be burned at the stake for thinking, even though I know that betraying science is what kept the family alive. In other words, the family would be dead without you and your protocol. But now the family can thrive because of me and my protocol, and it changes with time, right? But that is a negotiation. And the parts that love, this is an important thing to understand. The system is copied with love, out of love, given with love, and was created with love. Love begins with survival, by the way. If you love yourself, you take the steps to survive. Love begins with survival. And so every one of your ancestors kept the family alive by sacrificing, by butchering parts of itself, by denying parts of itself in a given environment, out of love. And if you dishonor them out of arrogance, they will not release the code. You have to go to them and thank them for keeping the family alive, and let them know that in your version of the code, it's no longer necessary to stay in the closet. You live in San Francisco. You can be gay. You can, you live in the United States. You can actually write a political opinion about your president without being shot. Right? So you're in that environment. Now, you're still in a sick environment. It's just different. And in your environment, you can say this, but you can't say that, or you get canceled. Right? You're in a sick environment, but you can now do this, but you can't do this. And if you do this, this, and this, you will be kept alive. And you've got it. You understand and you honor. Thank you for keeping my great-grandparents alive. Thank you. And I'm going to speak up now because I'm not currently jeopardizing the family's life. And that's the release. Thank you, honoring, forgiveness, and now the system is changing. Now the system is changing. If you succeed in this negotiation, you can 10x your accomplishment, more importantly, your well-being. Because your system may say, fine, you can be a genius, you can have billions, but you cannot be happy. Because happiness is what triggers the death in the family system. Right? God punishes you. If you have ancestors that believe in a punishing God and you sinned in that time, and so God was going to punish you for being happy, and you didn't want to be outcast forever, and the way to not be outcast was to punish yourself first, so mom would take pity on you, and then God would surely do the same. Well, then you may be busily punishing yourself, being miserable, so that God will forgive you and let you enter heaven in your mind. In your mind. Right? Can't be happy. We can do this, we just can't be happy. Then we'll be all alone. Thank you for being miserable so that we could get into the theoretical heaven. But that isn't the predominant belief at the moment. Now we can be happy just because we want to, right? We can choose to be happy. And nobody can stop us. Even if there's suffering and we now have that available. would you please release me from the family curse of unhappiness? Please. I know you did it for a good reason. Would you please release me? Right? I can be 30% more happy. This is the single most significant, empowering, meaningful, life-changing negotiation we will ever have. Good luck, and thank you for your attention.